Okay, so we're diving into some pretty interesting financial waters today. The Fed just slammed the brakes on interest rates
Okay.
for the first time since what feels like forever, like before the pandemic even, half a percentage point.
Big move.
Huge. You'd think everyone would be like breaking out the champagne,
Mm.
but it seems like everyone's kind of like cautiously optimistic.
Well, yeah, and what's so interesting here is that markets are always looking ahead,
Yeah.
right? So they actually already factored in this rate cut.
Really?
Yeah, they'd already priced it in, so that little stock jump we saw, short-lived.
Ah, so it's not actually good news.
Well, the real question is what happens next.
Right. Like, will they cut rates again?
Yeah.
Like, is this the first of many? And what does this even mean for, normal people like
Yeah.
me? Should I be refinancing my mortgage?
Let's start there, actually, because mortgage rates have dropped to 6.29% for a 30-year fixed,
Okay.
which is the lowest it's been since February.
That's a good red
It
flag.
is, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. Lower rates could actually make home prices go up.
Wait, really? How does that work?
So think about it this way. More buyers can suddenly afford to buy a house because they can get a lower interest rate.
Okay.
But we still have a housing shortage.
Right.
Basic supply and demand.
So even though the rates are good, actually finding a place is still a nightmare.
Yeah, pretty much. Some experts are even saying that prices could jump by double digits in some areas.
Wow. Okay, so maybe hold off on the house hunting for now?
Refinancing, though, that could be a good move depending on what your rate is right now.
Okay, refinancing. Good house hunting, bad.
Yeah.
Got it. What about like everything else? Should we be hitting the mall? Treat yourself.
Here's where things get a little tricky. We are expecting people to spend more, but companies are already planning for the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
And they're thinking people are going to be watching their wallets.
Makes sense.
So think big sales and a focus on value.
So maybe hold off on that designer handbag for now.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, what about investments? My tech stocks are all over the place.
Yeah, large cap tech, those big established companies.
Right.
They're still a big focus, but some analysts are saying we might see a shift to more defensive investments.
Defensive investments, what is that like? Like hiding money under your mattress.
Not quite. Think
Yeah.
healthcare utilities,
Okay.
those kinds of companies.
Yeah.
They reliably pay dividends. And historically, they do really well in the months after a rate cut.
Interesting.
They're like the tortoises in the race against the hare. Slow and steady wins the race, especially when things are uncertain.
Makes sense.
They offer stability and consistent returns, which can be really attractive when other parts of the market are volatile.
So not stuffing cash in the mattress, but maybe adding some extra padding?
Exactly. It's about finding that right balance for you, for your risk tolerance and your long-term goals.
Okay, got it. So we've talked about houses and shopping and investing. What else?
Well, this rate cut actually has implications beyond just our wallets.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We're talking global impact.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, for one, this rate cut is a signal to the rest of the world, other countries, other central banks, that the U.S. is serious about keeping the economy stable and under control. And how those other countries react could have a huge impact on things like exchange rates.
Which, for those of us who don't spend all day, reading financial reports means.
It affects everything.
Yeah.
Import prices, travel costs.
Really?
Even the cost of your morning coffee could be impacted by those fluctuating exchange rates.
Okay, so we're talking global impact now. This is way bigger than just my morning coffee getting more expensive.
It really is. And the rate cut's effect on the dollar is just one piece of the puzzle. Remember those global economic reports we mentioned?
Yeah.
Some of them are saying they're worried about a potential recession.
Wait, really?
And not just in the U.S., but globally.
Okay, now that is a scary thought. Is this rate cut enough to, stop that from happening?
That's the billion-dollar question, and honestly, there's no easy answer. The Fed seems to be going for a soft landing.
A soft landing.
Yeah, like a gradual slowing of the economy
Yeah.
instead of a full-blown recession.
Okay.
But whether they can actually pull it off depends on so many things. How businesses react, what happens with inflation, even just consumer confidence.
So much for my economics degree.
Right.
I should have paid more attention.
It's complicated. But that's why we're here to break it all down. Speaking of breaking things down, we've talked a lot about the big picture, but what about small businesses? They've really been through the ringer these past few years. Does this rate cut do anything for them?
Yeah, that's a good point. It seems like they always get caught in the middle.
They do. The good news is that lower interest rates can actually help them.
How so?
Well, for one, it makes borrowing cheaper. So small business owners might be able to get loans more easily and at lower rates, which could be huge for businesses that want to expand, hire new people, invest in new equipment.
So this could actually be good for entrepreneurship.
Exactly. Plus, if this rate cut does lead to people spending more money, even if it's just a little day, that's good news for small businesses
Right.
because they really rely on those customer dollars.
Okay, so there's some potential upside,
Yeah.
but I'm guessing it's not all sunshine and roses. What are the experts saying about the challenges?
You're right to be cautious. One of the biggest concerns is still inflation. It's cooled down a bit, but it's still putting pressure on prices and profit margins.
Yeah, everything still feels really expensive.
Exactly. And we can't forget about those supply chain issues. Remember those?
Yeah.
They haven't magically disappeared. Small businesses are still dealing with delays, shortages, increased costs.
It's a lot. So what's the takeaway for small business owners? Should they be optimistic?
It's a mixed bag, just like it is for everyone else. But I think the key is to stay informed, adapt to the changing landscape, and remember that there are resources out there to help them navigate these challenges.
Solid advice. Okay, before we get to the homework assignment for this deep dive, I have to ask about one more thing.
Let me guess, Bitcoin.
You know me too well. So our sources have picked up on some chatter in the crypto world about how this rate cut might actually be good for Bitcoin.
It's true. There's this theory that when traditional markets like the stock market get shaky, investors look for alternative assets. Things that don't necessarily move in the same direction as stocks and bonds.
Like what?
Like gold, real estate, and yes, even Bitcoin.
So is Bitcoin going to skyrocket? Should I be digging out my old crypto wallet?
Whoa, hold on. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Bitcoin is still really volatile, and this rate cut doesn't erase any of the risks.
Okay.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on, though, especially as we see how the rest of the year plays out.
So maybe not cashing out my retirement fund for Bitcoin just yet.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
But it is interesting how this one decision by the Fed, like ripples out and even affects things like crypto.
It really is. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating to me. It's like this chain reaction that touches practically everything.
Yeah, it makes you realize how connected everything really is. Speaking of connected, let's connect all the dots for our listeners before we wrap things up.
Sounds good to me.
So to recap our deep dive into this whole rate cut thing, let's start with mortgage rates. Refinancing good,
Yeah, if you can swing it.
but don't expect to find like a steal of a deal on a house anytime soon.
Right. Those lower rates could actually end up pushing prices up, especially with the housing market being the way it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, point number 2. We're thinking we might see people spending more, but get ready for a holiday season where everyone's looking for a bargain.
Yeah, discounts, promotions, all that good stuff.
Value-driven shopping.
Exactly.
Okay, and for those of you with investments, those big tech stocks are still a big deal, but it's probably a good idea to diversify a bit right now.
Exactly. Right now, it's all about those steady earners, healthcare utilities, that kind of thing.
Our tortoise friends.
There you go.
Okay, so we've talked about houses and shopping and investing. What's the biggest takeaway of all of this?
Honestly, I think it's just to stay informed. This rate cut is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. So keep an eye on what's happening globally, look at those economic indicators, and hey, even keep an eye on those alternative markets like Bitcoin.
Because knowledge is power.
Exactly.
Or at least it helps us make slightly more informed decisions.
That's right.
And there you have it, your crash course in what the Fed's latest move means for you.
Until next
Until next time, happy diving.